Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search marketing and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is none other than Michael Odiari, a visionary founder and tech entrepreneur of GetCheckAppcom, a technology platform that aims to provide accountability and trust, and a solution that truly bridges the gap of communication between the people and the government, building unity while building relationships. Today, Michael and I discuss his journey and experience leading to the launch of GetCheckAppcom. Michael also shares the backstory of why he chose the given domain in comparison to CheckApp.com, Check.com, and other alternatives. And last but not least, we discuss how the technology platform addresses the challenges of safety, injustice, and systemic issues facing the people and the government. So with that, Michael, welcome, and thank you for making time to join us today.
Alvin, thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for providing a platform where people could hear more of what we're doing in taking the traffic stop process virtual. So thank you very much.
Certainly. And so to kick things off, Michael, let's share briefly at a high level with our listeners a bit about yourself, who you are, your personal and professional background.
All right. Well, like you said, my name is Michael Odiari. I am a first-time technology entrepreneur, but, with that, I've had my strength is in process improvement. So I've had a background in technology and process improvements and, really just trying to find a way to solve problems, I guess you could say. Have an athletic background as well. Played collegiate ball at Texas State. Did the Dallas Cowboys camp, and the founder of Check. What? Founder of Check.
Exactly. You're an old Bobcat.
I'm an old Bobcat all the way. Bobcat all the way.
That's awesome. So for listeners that aren't familiar with Texas or Texas State, so Texas State is what, roughly, I guess about 30, 45 minutes south of Austin?
Yeah, perfect.
If that.
Right on the head. Yeah. It's the Bobcats, San Marcos.
Yeah, San Marcos, Texas.
Beautiful river in the middle of campus. It was before known as Southwest Texas State, right? But then the name got and then the name got changed into Texas State. So, there's been so many phenomenal people that went through Texas State that I didn't even know about, and I encountered them through this journey, right? Texas State has phenomenal alumni.
Yeah. I was about to say it's so I've got a good friend that he actually played football there. Shad Bell played football there. Him and another buddy, and so they have since hung up their shoes and I guess in replace for some fashionable J's, as they are now church planting. So
I am telling you, now I see why they are called the Rising Star of Texas. Right? Because of so many things that they have playing there, especially in criminal justice, they're looked upon in the criminal justice space, right? And in sciences and just a lot of the things that they are doing in academics, right? I know we're also known for a party school. Let's not get it twisted. I'm just going to keep it honest. But, now I see also why they say, work hard, play hard. They work, exactly. People at Texas State, they work phenomenally hard, right? And they also play hard. As I take a sip of water.
Indeed. So then coming out of Texas State, what was your path? Like, what did you want to grow up to do, to be? What did you major in? Kind of what set your path coming out of Texas State professionally?
When I was at Texas State, I was majoring in chemistry and political science. And in political science, one of the things that I loved about, that I loved and I appreciate now about political science is it allowed us to study in depth about it's almost like philosophy, the thought, right? You learned about Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, right? I took a class that was politics in the medieval times, right? So my path and direction has always been, that's one thing I always admired, but I was actually going to go become a pharmacist.
Wow.
Yeah, I was going to go become a pharmacist. And towards the end, towards my junior year, I shadowed a pharmacist, and it's just that's not me, right? Yeah, I shadowed the pharmacist. That's not me. Standing behind, behind the counter, minimal interaction with people. It's not me, and it's okay when people are going to school and they still have no clue what they want to be. Okay? You think this is what you want to do, and then you look in, and then you have to ask yourself the question of, like, is this really me, and is this where I see myself for X period of time, right? Because you're also looking in the future, like, is this it,
Right.
So after school, after graduating college, I say this found me. Right? This really found me, because I realized that the experiences that I went through in, like, my career path ultimately led me here. So, for example, working at Frito-Lay, right? Learning, one of the things that was of value that I didn't even realize was, when I got into Frito-Lay, I was also one of the youngest team members there, right? And with the team that I was on, and it was a new team, there was so much responsibility that's being offloaded to our managers and that particular group and that particular team, that they were also having to offload some of that responsibility on us, right? So where now you have to step into a role of, like, leading a certain team in another part of the country to drive and meet the team goal, right? And they have to rely on you to do this. And I did not realize that working on that team was like working in a startup.
Right.
Because you're wearing so many different hats. And especially being the youngest, they gave a structure. They had that older corporate structure, right? You wore slacks, and you dressed up, and you're on time to the office, and you did X, Y, and Z before you did this. You're sending reports to this department. And they kept me accountable. Like, I do something, right? They really influenced, right, the old company structure and accountability, right, that I would need, that I am utilizing today in growing tech, right? And so I thank them first and foremost. I even went back and actually I did thank my managers.
That's awesome.
That's people don't realize how they make an impact in your life, or you don't even realize that what you're doing, how it's making an impact in your life for the future of what you're trying to do, or what you didn't even realize that you were about to do.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what led to you launching GetCheckApp. But you spent at least half a decade, I guess, in terms of doing various data analyst roles. Mm-hmm. With companies that little did you realize was actually preparing you, was giving you the framework that you're working from today. And so how did you know when to jump and start GetCheckApp? Or did you get pushed?
I got pushed, right? It was something that, when the seed is given to you, when a seed or a vision is given to you, right? And it seems like your life or everything, you're comfortable. You're not going to jump when you're comfortable. Right. And to be honest, this is when I was at McKesson. And this is when I was at McKesson. And, I've always had the idea of check, and I would work on it. I would do this here and there, but basically the question is like, when did you go all in? Right? When did you leave and not go back to corporate and they accept like
no more checks
anymore? That check's gonna stop coming, right? We're gonna have to hustle differently. It was when I was at McKesson, and backstory of that was my resume at Frito-Lay. There was a senior executive that I went over and asked him to help me on my resume, and you know, when he really helped me, he really marked it up. He tore it up. Like, he tore it up. And you know he tore it up because before he showed it to me, he said, "You asked me to help you, right?" You know, when someone tell you that, it's like, what did you? So they're telling you, hey, be prepared. What I'm about to show you. Don't get mad at me. You asked for this help. And he came with it. And, you know, and it's crazy because what I did was I wrote it down, right? What he was really doing was helping me structure where I was trying to go in life by my resume. Because on the objective, he asked me, hey, who are you in a descriptive sentence? Like, what are you trying to do? Where are you trying to go? And I'm talking about leading, you know, IT teams, right? And did not realize that I would be leading it in this capacity, right? So when you talk about, did I just decide just to, hey, I'm going to go all in and do this? No, at McKesson, they actually, you know, what happened is they let me go, right? When they let me go from my position and I was still under training, that's when I said, you know what? I'm not going back to corporate.
Wow.
I'm not going back to corporate because of everything I guess I bought into and how everything happened. I was like, I'm not going back to corporate. But I felt that was the blessing in disguise, right? That had to happen in order for us to be having this conversation. Because mind you, when I first got to McKesson, they asked me if money wasn't an issue, you know, what would I be doing if money wasn't an issue during an icebreaker? And I said, I'll be building a technology company, not knowing that I would be sitting right? So
watch what you ask for.
Watch what you ask for. And it ain't going to happen the way you thought it was going to happen.
Man, who you telling?
So like looking back, I see why they always talk about you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back.
Oh, that's good.
And now that's why I see why they say take time to self-reflect. You got to take time to reflect, because when you reflect and see, you know, what you've asked for, what you've written down, and then see the trajectory of where your life is going, you know, what you've written down, those are the goals, your heart desires, that's where you're going. So when you look back, you can see like, dang, oh snap, like, when they talk about the roads diverged in the woods, you know, and I took the one least traveled by, and it's made all the difference. When you reflect, you can see which road that you're taking, because life is going to present, you know, the road, and the road leads to the choices that we've made, right? That's why we're sitting here today. And at times life will push you, but when life pushes you, you know, there's when life pushes you over the edge, it's scary as
yeah.
It's scary than a mug. I'm gonna keep it like that, right? It's scary than a mug, but I think that's the test that life is really seeing, to see how bad, you know, to really see how bad you want it.
Totally. So then, in terms of your time of reflection, how long was it from the time you were released to the time you reflected to the time you actually started running with GetCheckApp?
See, the thing is, everything seemed like it happened instantaneously, but again, I've been working on it before that, right? So when they released me, it just gave me now the full capacity to say, bump this. There's no point going back into corporate. This is what I'm going to do right here. Like, this is it. You just gave me fuel and I'm supposed to put it into two things. Well, I'm going to put it into two of my passions, TV and film and technology. And I'm going to go create, because one thing I realized and I know about myself is, I'm a master builder, like, like Bishop TD said, right? At times, you're a builder, right? So I create things. I understood who I am, right? And I'm a creator. I create things. So when they pushed me over the edge, it was really an opportunity for me to say, you know what? It's time for me to create something that could also, here's this problem that's been taking place into society. And I'm tired of watching people going in on the news, pointing fingers and people going home, right? And there's no actual or tangible solution that's taking place or that's being provided into the world. So I took it upon myself because of what, my own personal story that transpired or that happened, right? Because in a split of a second, we may not be having this conversation, right? So one thing that I realized on this journey is this is a purpose that I needed to fulfill.
Right.
But I didn't see that when I started.
That's interesting. And so walk me through, I guess, when you realized, I guess, just that you were called to address the experience now that from a global standpoint, with all the social upheaval, and with all the tension, the animosity that's between the people and the government, certainly law enforcement, like, when did you actually have that aha moment that actually I'm on to something with this this company that you're birthing and launching called GetCheckApp?
That's a very interesting question. It's like the question of, when did Noah know that he was up to something?
Exactly.
Like, I'm not comparing myself, but all I'm just saying is, when did Noah know that he was up to something? When, because people now call me and they're like, oh my gosh, like, this is a perfect timing. Now is the time for this solution. And at times I ask the question, is it now? Was it 6 months ago?
Right.
Was it a year ago? So it's a hard question, as in, the world, check this. It became a perfect solution because of the focus and the things that's taking place in society now. I understand where people are coming from. People are getting to see this now, and I understand it. Now the question is being steadfast in believing that this is the solution and moving forward when no one else saw it. Because faith is taking action, right?
Yeah. You stepping out there before that staircase is fully there.
They talk about faith is taking action, right? Faith is the evidence of things hoped for and things yet unseen. So, right? So evidence of things hoped for. So there's evidence. There was evidence here. So I'm basically saying I believed it before I saw it. So I started moving, right? Some people want to see it before they believe it.
Right. Well, that isn't faith.
That ain't faith. Faith is taking action, right? Because you believe that you will see it, because what you seek, you will find.
Totally.
And for me, again, my faith has been a big proponent of this journey. So for me, I always see it, like I said, this has been a calling. This was a calling that I didn't even realize was a calling. Like, this found me.
So then how did you come up with the name GetCheckApp? Why GetCheckApp?
See, check, right? Check and balances. One of the things, right? Check and balances. One of the things is, we keep talking about a broken gap, right? And if we break that down and we get to the root, what is broken is communication, right? And check, it allows someone to, let me check you real quick, right? So let me check you, and I put it in the context of, well, an officer would want to check who they're about to approach. That motorist they just pulled over. Let that officer check them real quick. Who is this? But in the same hindsight, let that motorist also be able to check the officer, right? Who they
Right.
just approached, right? What's the name of this officer, first of all? What department, right? Let me check them, right? Offering both parties to check each other, the check and balance. So check, right?
So then how do they, so you give the concept there in terms of the officer wants to know who they're rolling up on, and to a certain extent I guess an officer does have a bit of that information, or rather
Mm-hmm.
more likely the case of at least they know the owner of that vehicle, not
Yeah.
necessarily who's driving it. And so
Mm-hmm.
you give that example of the officer wants to check to understand who they're about to walk up on, because you're right. I mean, to a certain extent, you're getting out of a car, you don't know who you're walking up on, what's about to happen. And so it's all these different questions while in the, 180 degrees, there the motorist is, and they're asking the same questions. It's like, well, who is this officer? What's this
Yeah.
person's history? And so there's just already some tension there. And so the fact that CheckApp can come along and somewhat ease the tension, if you will, if not remove it all. And so how does CheckApp actually work, I guess, in terms of being able to help one another understand who they are?
Yeah. Um, that's a great question. So how does Check App work, right? The motorist will have the app, right? So whenever an officer pulls someone over, like you just mentioned, they will have somewhat of information on the vehicle owner, right? So by when they search that license plate, they have somewhat information of the vehicle owner. So we wanted to keep the process the same. And where we understood the process was doing over 80 hours of police ride-alongs to really understand which direction they were going to go with it. And
Mm.
what we did was keep the process the same. So when an officer searches or types in that motorist license plate on the check platform on his end, it initiates a call to the motorist's self mobile phone, right? And when that motorist picks it up, the officer on his end will be able to see the image of that motorist driver's license, insurance, right, and to figure out the background information of the motorist they just pulled over, right? So it's the tool for the initial interaction.
Mm. Got it. Got it. So then, what should hopefully put folks at ease, obviously, in terms of everything is heightened these days, just because of you got the media, and we've just got different things popping up. It seems truly like a game of whack-a-mole. Although this is more than just a game; it is life or death in
This
most
is.
cases. And so, but it seems like something is popping up, every twist and turn, if not every hour of each and
Mm.
every day. Of it's either someone, either there's an officer that's at fault in terms of police brutality, but then there's also the other side of where you have the common citizen that likely not adhering or complying, to what the officer's request is. And so that's just in a bigger and different conversation altogether. But likely said, it's the communication breakdown is obvious and it's there. And so CheckApp actually aims to unify and build relationship.
Yeah.
Uh,
So with what's taking place in society currently right now is there's a lack of trust, right? And there's a lack of accountability.
mm,
And for law enforcement and blacks and minorities, there's a lack of safety. And I'm not even going to just say blacks and just minorities, but we're now seeing people who every day, everyone doesn't know what's going to happen because anything can
right.
happen in a split second. So what we're, like you mentioned, what we're seeing in the media, people are afraid, and one of those are the three factors, right? Trust and accountability, safety, right? How do we close those gaps? How do we bridge that gap? And what Check is offering is saying, hey, we went to the root cause, we went to the root. And why are we starting at traffic stops? Because we see that 83% of Black and minority individuals will first encounter law enforcement at a traffic stop.
That's staggering. 83%.
Will encounter law enforcement for the first time in a traffic stop.
Wow.
So if this is the root, then that means we need to start bridging the gap at the root encounter. Because why we also emphasize the process, and this is going to be for another conversation, right? Why we also emphasize the process is because we've seen, from being out in traffic court, that there's so much hoops and hurdles that people have to go through to resolve a citation as well too, right? Because check is not just only providing safety and providing trust and accountability. Check is also providing, the ability to package up your the documents for your citations and send it off to the court to save you time, money, and provide you ease of mind. Right? So you don't have to go into the court to resolve your citation. Check provides you, hey, here's documents that you could sign, and we can send it over to the court to help reduce the cost of your citation, and really recommend some options. Hey, by doing this, you could help reduce the cost of your citation. Because the three things that people from our surveys, from talking to our surveys that people have answered, and the questions that people have answered is, resolving a citation is time consuming because they have to take time off of work, and it's time consuming. It's confusing because it's verbiage. Some people don't understand how to really resolve their citation.
Legalese.
Yeah. Right. And it causes them the highest one that surprised me was it causes a high amount of anxiety and stress. I was surprised by that.
I wonder why.
So again, that's why we also we emphasize the people, right? We went out there and talked to the people. Why does it cause an amount of stress? This is what I got. And I was like, didn't think about this. Well, we thought about it, but didn't really play this into a factor of why it will cause people amount of stress. The polls from why it causes people a lot of stress and anxiety is, well, the first time you get a ticket, you have a short amount of time to go into the court to tell them how you're going to resolve it. When you get that information, tell them how you're going to resolve it. Then you have a longer period of time to resolve the next part of a citation. You have to bring it back. And one thing people said is, okay, imagine when you got that ticket, did you call them right away and try to handle? No, you waited until the last minute.
Right.
And then you forgot the date. People forgot the date on when they needed to resolve their ticket. Wow. That was the highest one. People just forgot. Oh my gosh, I forgot my ticket, or right. And now you have a longer gap of when you have to bring in the documents again on, hey, this is how I resolved it. And in the meantime, they're still living their lives. There's a lot going on. People are busy.
And then God forbid they get pulled over again or something.
And then start that process again. Come on.
Wow. So then in terms of even this time period that we find ourselves in, which at the time of recording, we are halfway through what seems to be the longest year of our life, 2020. I would say it's the halfway point, but it feels like we've already lived at least 3 years inside of a matter of 6 months, 7 months.
Can I mention something on that? See,
man, dude.
When you talk about this, I feel like as a country, as a nation, we're in a moment of crisis.
Oh, totally. Beyond it, to say the least.
But this is good, and hear me out why I say good. Crisis exudes growth. Right? Why did we feel like this is the longest period of our time? Because the important things are now in front of us that we actually have to handle it, right? The important things are in front of us as to why we are suggesting change.
Yeah, no distractions.
No distractions. So now we all see a problem. That's why they see check as the solution. Because again, I go back to, while we were distracted, I left corporate, dedicated my time, resources to go figure out, hey, this is a problem. Let's go figure out, how do we bridge this gap? How do we solve it? So now that all the factors come into play now within the time that we're in, now here's a solution that again, I'm just merely a vessel.
Mhm.
I'm merely the vessel. And it's like, here's the solutions that the world has been looking for that they didn't realize or they didn't know that they've been looking for. And in 2020, okay, we need something.
Boom. It's here, front and center.
They, like my coach said, prepare for your opportunity. So when your opportunity presents itself, it doesn't embarrass you.
Exactly. And so now is it just you that's part of the check, or do you have a team of people?
Man, whenever you're running a startup and building and building something from scratch, you're wearing all the hats. It's everywhere, right? It's you, people who could come in and play a role in this particular area. People who come play a role in this particular area, but you're wearing so many different hats. One thing that I've learned from this journey too is it allows you to know a little bit of everything. I'm not saying become an expert, but at least you dive in and at least grasp like the foundation of marketing, foundation of sales, communication and how to communicate with developers, right? Those are all different skill sets that you're learning all simultaneously while trying to be organized and lead various different business functions all at the same time, right? One thing that I see that is it takes discipline in order to have that, and you're having and one thing I've seen is you have to hold yourself accountable, right? So
Totally.
you have to hold yourself accountable, but it also helps to have other outside individuals hold you accountable, right?
Yeah.
Because imagine during a workout, right, and someone's right next to you and they're pushing you. You could do more, because they're right there and someone's right there holding you accountable versus, you going out there and at times that, the pain may hurt a little bit. You might want to slide off, but,
Right.
and everything, it's a combination of both. It's everything. What you can do to get by.
Right. Right. And so that's interesting. So then you're learning all the different facets
Yeah.
of everything in terms of the business, the ins and outs, if you will.
In,
And
out.
so in terms of where Check is at today, like what's your biggest hope? What's your biggest dream and vision for Check?
Our vision is Check is the new era of digital communication between the people and government. So our vision this is just the start for Check, right? This is what we see is a stepping stone on revolutionizing our judicial system. And we see that there's many facets that Check could play in government, in
Right.
communication, in streamlining the process and helping government better communicate with the people in the community. So check this. Whenever people think about government or government technology, and more so, local or municipal technology, the first thing that most people will say is old and outdated, right?
Right. Right.
Right. So how can we? So right there, right? Technology. There's a broken gap of communication because government technology is old and outdated, and you have people in the private sector. We have various technologies. The way we communicate is always expanding and evolving, and how we're using applications to streamline and make things easier, and how we make decisions, and and notifications or things that remind us, and how we get things done, right? So, and right there, it shows that there's already a broken gap, right?
Mm.
So government needs to open its doors to allow private sector, allow startups, allow innovative thinkers to come in there to be able to pour new creative ways, solutions to help that provide them technology that could help, bridge the gap for people in their community.
Gotcha. So it really is an end-to-end solution that you're after. Really a holistic approach because it's prior to. I mean, yeah, we can say it's at that first stop, but it's really prior to that first stop.
Yeah.
of really beginning to get into the minds of humanity, not just
Mm,
necessarily a citizen or an officer, but really getting down to people in their most atomic form.
yeah. Yes.
And that's
Yes.
awesome. That is
Yes.
awesome. Obviously, it is a ginormous, to use a word to say the least, um,
Hmm.
task that's ahead of you. But if it if you don't, who will?
That's why they say don't despise small beginnings,
Right.
because if we didn't take the first step and one step at a time, we won't be where we are. We wouldn't be having this conversation, right?
Mm,
If like you mentioned, it's a ginormous feat to undertake, right? But I understand that the way to eat a big giant elephant, that everyone knows, is one bite at a
one
time,
bite at a time.
right?
Yeah.
And through this process, the things that I've learned is, you know, in this journey, you have two options, right? As you continue down the road, you either have when adversity hits or a wall, or you hit a wall, what are you going to do? Are you going to turn around and go home? Or are you going to go learn, seek for the answer, come back and apply it, and then see if what you've learned and your application helps you get to the next level, right?
Right.
Because each thing that you're doing, you're always learning and applying. That's
Totally.
really so. So when I remember when my mentor, I told him about Check, and he told me, "Well, you're going to get ready for a real life MBA, right?" Now, when they talk about the school of hard knocks, I completely understand I completely understand what they mean now. The school of hard knocks. This is a different. The curriculum is different.
You say you don't even realize I'm taking a test and I don't realize it until after the
What?
fact.
What?
That's
What?
awesome.
Yeah,
That is awesome.
man, this is a whole nother journey. That's why I share and I talk about the journey so much. And what I could really share, what I share is what I've learned in the journeys, because this is what I've seen firsthand, right? So my
Right.
experiences, I'm not, and at times to some people, when I'm like hammering, like they're like, man, you can't think you know it all. I'm like, I'm not trying to know it all, but I've been out there, and this is what the people have been saying.
Right.
So, when I did my research, I didn't just do a research where I just sat behind the screen, read books. No, I did my research by going out there and interacting with law enforcement, right? Not
Yeah,
just
you had
in one
application.
department, right? You got to apply that, right? You got to figure out and sit there and ask them questions, take notes, do their 12-hour shift.
You have to be in the mental state at that 12th hour, at that 11th hour when someone gets pulled over, or you get called.
Yeah.
It's like your number gets called in that 11th, that 12th hour, when you are likely mentally drained, physically drained, emotionally
Mm-hmm.
drained, and you have to be in the mindset to be able to deliver a product that's going to build and unite relationships.
One of the things that I've we've gotten to the root of is where the broken gap of communication's been, is really more so what everyone's, or what people are missing, right? And that's communication, a broken gap of communication. We're talking about context and perspective,
It's
right?
good.
Because I believe it's easy to misunderstand, right? Because to understand takes time and seeking by asking questions, right? Because if you truly want to understand where someone's coming from, you want to go deeper, right? And to misunderstand, you're only accepting the surface information that you're being told. And with that, you're just going to dismiss it. So you misunderstand because it's easy.
Right.
And from this whole entire journey, from this whole entire thing, what Check is doing is providing that bridge, right? We're infusing technology at the root, because,
Right.
as I mentioned, 83% of Black or minority males will first encounter law enforcement during a traffic stop, right? So if that's the root, right? what we're doing is injecting technology at the initial encounter, you allowing law enforcement to use this as a tool to bridge, the gap of communication.
Right.
Essentially what we're doing, we provide using technology in this ever-changing world, right? With COVID taking place, right? People talking about social distancing, now and an unjust system, right? We've just been preparing for the opportunity until it was time to provide the solution, or we were preparing the solution until it's time for the opportunity presented itself for us to provide the solution.
Now, one of the things I know that my listeners are probably going to question is just how did you come across GetCheckApp.com? Now, obviously, you have, I believe, CheckLLC.com, but I know most are going to wonder, why didn't you purchase Check.com or CheckApp.com or even Check.app?
So it came, first of all, the name Check was more so checks and balances, right?
Right.
We wanted to give the people the ability to check the motorist and or the people the ability to check the officer, and the officer the ability to check the motorist, right? Why didn't I go with CheckApp.com? Because to be honest, when I first went and looked at CheckApp.com, it was a couple $100,000, right? And
see how my checking and my savings work out.
You see how my checking and my savings is set up. I said to myself, CheckApp.com. You know what? I bet it doesn't ring. No, I'm joking. But it was a couple $100,000. And
wow.
At the early stages, is that an investment to make right there, right? For a name, right? A name is important. I do not disagree. We went with CheckLLC.com because we then became an LLC, right? I'm like, all right, bet. Check LLC, cool, right? I just wanted to have check in it.
Right.
And I remember a mentor of mine's like, they have GetCheckApp. And I'm like, okay, I guess it makes sense because, like, you try to tell someone, hey, what's the app? Go to GetCheckApp, like, go get it, right? I was like, oh, okay, GetCheckApp.com. It makes sense, right? So I'm like, in the heat of it, all right, let's go grab that. Let's do it, right? And it fits for what we're trying to do. And we're trying to take the name as long as it could go, right? Because I know companies, through it will change their name, right? They will change their name. I didn't want that to be a big, giant focus. I knew that check is, the context of the name was important. Having check in it was just one thing that I wanted to do. Right? When someone's like, hey, they will still always remember check, right?
Right. Definitely. Because one of the things, because I think in this case, obviously the ideal name would be check.com. And then if you kind of build out from that, and so if we said check.com really is the ultra premium domain name for what you do, but then that next level is checkapp.com, and then there's this third level of adding either an adjective or a verb in front of checkapp.com. And so in your case, you've chosen getcheckapp.com, but then also think about other possibilities, something like I've seen people likely use the word go or even try. So it'd be something like gocheckapp.com or trycheckapp.com. But in your case, it really does make sense. Getcheckapp.com.
Yeah.
Because outside of it, I mean, gocheckapp.com. I'm like, well, go check app. I mean, okay, it's a possibility, but it really doesn't have that resounding ring as
and it takes time. It takes time to really, like you talk about that resounding ring. It takes time, right? And now that we keep saying it, it literally is telling you what to do. Right. The website's telling you what to go do.
Right.
What do I need? Where do I need to go? GetCheckApp.com. Like, it makes it like it's kind of hard to forget it because it's telling you what to do, and what it's telling you what to do is where to go do it.
Right. Right. That now, so how do people go and get check? Is it available? Can we go get it? When,
So
where, how?
the app will be available by the end of this year.
I know people will be, graciously awaiting to get their hands on this app. Wrapping up here, so obviously you're in the throes of this just ginormous undertaking of a journey, entrepreneurial journey. But what would be your advice to someone starting their journey into entrepreneurship, taking on a task that is, regardless of the size, where should they start?
That's a good question. One thing I would always mention is write it down, right? Once you start writing something down, you kind of take that thought and putting it on paper, right? And now it's going to start coming to life, right? Because when you put it on paper, you get to see your thought. Now you're seeing your seed, you're seeing your idea. And then from writing it down will allow you to know which area, what's going to be your first step. But I say it's very important to write it down. It's the smallest thing. It's the littlest thing. But one thing I've seen is the littlest things make the biggest differences, right?
Right.
Through this journey, I realized something, which was I thought I was building a startup, but in the midst of the journey, I realized that the startup was building me.
Wow.
You're going to get to know yourself through this, right? It's right. If you're doing this for money, the journey is going to test you to see if your why. What is your why? I guess that's that's first and foremost. Write that down. Why are you going? Would you undertake this?
Right.
Why would you go and why would you sacrifice? What is the level of sacrifice are you willing to undertake?
Are you willing to leave that job?
Are you willing to leave that job
or get pushed?
Collecting your check or get pushed? Are you willing to stop seeing checks come in?
Yeah.
Because you believe that there's something better on the other side, or
I think that's powerful. I truly think that's powerful, and because I think even when you and I talked previously, it was one of those things of I do remember or recall you saying that you have notes of where you had written things about check years in advance.
Years in advance, and it is surprising. And I could tell you, and in some of my notes, I have date, time. I could tell you where I was at, what I was doing, and then what that idea was at that moment.
Wow.
Like I have notebooks of a roadmap of the journey. So I mentioned the journey so much. Whenever I, these light bulbs or these gems, or I've had great mentors too. One thing that I would also say is surround yourself with phenomenal mentors. I've had phenomenal mentors that have left dimes and left gems in books, audio tapes that I went and sought after. Because in order to do this, there may not be a roadmap that's physically present, because your journey, everyone's journey is different. Everyone's roadmap is different. The way to get there is different, right? But the foundation of what everyone's saying is concrete, and it's essentially the same. Because they're all talking about principles.
And so last but not least, is there anything else that you'd like to share with listeners? Like, how can folks, if they're looking to get involved with you, partner with you, reach out to you, contact you? How else do they go about doing so?
All right. Well, first and foremost, like I mentioned, literally, guys, it's easy. Go to GetCheckAppcom. All right, like go to GetCheckAppcom.
What was the name of that site again?
GetCheckApp.com. It's fast and easy.
Oh man.
Oh my God. Go to GetCheckAppcom. Y'all can follow me on Instagram and social media,
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of them.
We'll throw some links down
Throw
below
some links,
this thing.
right? Like, that would be amazing. But again, I want one thing that I want to share with people on this too is to go on the journey with me, because I've been sitting on some, not only have I been writing, I have videos, pictures of just content of some of the some of the living conditions that we were in.
Yeah.
Right? And some of the moments that it was just like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy just recording this, and I'm like, why is he? I didn't even realize he was there. So I watched it, and I've seen this, and I've watched this once, and I'm like, wow, I've seen my evolution, and transformation.
Oh, totally.
And I've seen my growth. So I want people to go on this journey with us. So yeah, it's one step at a time. Imagine watching TV, and what you're watching is coming to life as you're watching a show. Imagine that.
Totally. Yeah. Well, with that, we're out of time. So Michael, thank you again for joining us today and sharing your entrepreneurial experience.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for providing a platform to share the story, share our solution, man. It's awesome, phenomenal. Thank you.
Certainly, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain name strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or Podbean. Last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. Thanks, and that's all for now.